What's going on, y'all, and welcome on in. In today's video, let's start our RTA series. In today's video, we're going to go over the very basics and start with finding your playstyle as well as figuring out your draft situation. They kind of tie in together, but we're going to go over the most basic fundamentals. That way you guys can start preparing if you're trying to get masters. RTA season, the end is coming up soon. The RB skin looks great. I think a lot of y'all, most account reviews I do nowadays are trying to find out how to draft, how to find your playstyle, and just start getting your foot in the RTA door and starting to succeed. So, like I mentioned, a lot of the account reviews I've done on stream have been about real-time arena RTA. The season's ending, you guys all want to get your skins, you want to start playing, you see a lot of streamers playing RTA, you want to try it out for yourself. So let me go ahead and help you out because I get this question asked probably the most after all the early questions on hunts, PvE progression. This is probably the end game, what most people see as the end game. And a lot of y'all want to start learning and figure out just the fundamentals and basics of RTA. By the way, if any of y'all watching do need an account review, I'm going to be trying to focus on that for the next 2 weeks or so until the end of the season, mainly helping players hit masters for the skin as well as just learning how to get into it. But the number one question I get asked when I load up said account review is, Carl, what units should I focus on? What should I build up? And before we start looking into that, we need to figure out what your playstyle is. And unfortunately for a lot of y'all watching in the beginning, your playstyle isn't always what you want. A lot of it times is determined by how your gear is rolling. And there is one specific playstyle that I think I end up advising most players to start on, newer players, because of its ease of access. And then later on, you can branch into the other sorts of archetypes, drafting styles, things like that. But in this video, let's go ahead and cover all the different draft types, all the different play styles, as well as I'll give you a few examples of each, and then we can go from there. Although I know this is a guide for newer players, there used to be an old team called the Golden Boys. On that team was Last Rider Crow, General Purgus, and of course, the most ambitious mobile game of all time, Raid Shadow Legends. If you're like Car and you like global PvP, massive PvE boss battles, 600 plus unique champions, then look no further than Raid. Let's start by talking about one of my personal favorite bosses, Guardian of the Void Keep, Malik Kavar. This guy was once a priest of the light, but in typical video game fashion ended up embracing the darkness. He was kicked to the curb by his fellow holy priests, but lucky for us, Malik went off to master the magic of the void, giving us players a nice supply of void potions to ascend our champions with. The main trick to fighting Malik is dealing with all the poison he puts out. It's a lot, and he can actually nuke you by making you take the full poison damage all at once if you're not careful. But if you can cleanse the debuffs on this boss, you'll be good to go. Raid's got a ton happening this month, with a fresh rotation of the Brutal Hydra boss and a ton of events and tournaments every single day, including some special Valentine's Day events where you can get your hands on a brand new legendary champion. This is the best time to get started in Raid, and if you click my link in the description below or scan my QR code here on the screen, you'll get cool bonuses like a free epic champion Tyrell, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon awesome champions as soon as you get in game. All this treasure can be found in your inbox right up here, and it's only available for new players for 30 days. And that's all you gotta do, guys, so make sure you check out the link in the description below to get those free goodies. Find me in game under the name Car6, and big thank you to Raid for sponsoring us. Thank you guys for watching. Let's get back to the video. I know I already said thank you, but they keep asking me to come back and do more sponsored content. So you guys are obviously watching the ads, clicking the links. It really helps a lot. So big thank you to you guys watching. I really appreciate y'all. All right, guys, I was talking about team compositions and play styles. I'm going to hit y'all with some crazy production value. Let's go ahead and open up MS Paint. And let's talk about the Playstyle Spectrum. This will help you visualize and kind of understand that all the playstyles. Now, of course, this is all player determined, meaning there's no official Smilegate or Epic 7 definition to any of these team comps or anything like that. But most players will agree that this is sort of the case for all kinds of playstyles. All right, so let's go ahead and start. And I'll make it very simple. It'll be super quick and easy to understand. But let's go ahead and start with a spectrum. So we have a little graph here, a chart. And in the very middle, I'm going to call this part the standard. Okay, this is standard. This is why it's in the middle, and this is where I think most y'all watching right now should fall under, or at least start as. And standard could also mean some people call it bruiser. Basically, it just kind of means that you are an all-rounder. You don't have a specific all-in, you're not hyper aggressive, you're not super tanky, you're kind of a jack of all trades. You start in the middle, you have a lot of different styles of units, mostly bruisers, and you can kind of be a little versatile both in the draft phase as well as the units, you know, you're building up. Now, as we move towards the right-hand side, we'll use the right-hand side here. We start falling into a more aggressive playstyle, right? And a lot of people will call this aggro. All right, that's short for aggressive. Now, you're going to start looking at shifting from standard to bruiser. When you go towards aggro, you start leaning into more speed and more damaging style units. Think of units like Closer Charles, faster Remnant Violets. A lot of units can fall into all these categories, and some of them excel in all categories. Usually those are the meta picks. But yeah, we start leaning towards faster and more damage, an all-in strategy. But there is an even more all-in strategy. I can't find my cursor here. At the end, there we go. And that would be at the very far end of the spectrum, guys. Of course, we have Cleave. Okay, you all know what this is. I think this is where a lot of people want to end up because it's very fast. The games are done quick. It's exciting. You kind of just destroy your opponent before they can react. But most of y'all will have to start at standard and eventually shift into aggro, which is still a variation of like the standard play. And then you go on full on Cleave. And just keep note that both aggro and Cleave require tons and tons of speed gear. Let's go ahead and write that down on the screen just for completionist sake. So we'll write for aggro and Cleave, change my font color. These two archetypes require a emphasis on speed. Obviously, if you play aggro or Cleave, if you don't go first, you're not going to be winning any matches. Now, I did mention at the start that there's a specific playstyle that I think most y'all fall under, and that is, of course, in the very middle, guys, standard / bruiser. And this is where I think 90% of y'all need to start off at, right? Start here. I'll write that down. And the reason for that is, of course, because unlike Cleave and aggro, where you need a huge emphasis on rolling a lot of speed gear, a lot of just DPS plus speed gear, having multiple options in case your opponent bans some, in case your opponent tries to contest, right? Standard and bruiser is a lot more versatile. You can kind of be more reactionary. You can even be a little bit proactive too, but it's just a lot safer. And most of the gear you roll from arena, from abyss, from wherever is going to have those kind of all-rounder stats, right? We don't need to fish for one specific stat. We kind of just want a well-balanced pool of statistics for our characters. Now, there is one last playstyle that I need to mention here at the opposite end of Cleave. You don't really hear about this one too much because it's not that strong, this meta, in my opinion. But some of y'all will fall in this playstyle, and I think I fall a little bit, you know, between here and standard somewhere. But this would be considered the tank, right? Opposite of Cleave. Polar opposite of Cleave, we consider the tank playstyle. Now, like Cleave, I don't suggest a lot of players start here. One, a lot of y'all don't like this playstyle. I think it's not that exciting. It's a lot more reactionary. You kind of just stall out your opponent and then hit them back when they're out of gas. But this could have a lot of variations. I joked about the Golden Boys earlier. That was kind of a tank archetype with, you know, Last Rider Crow, Ambitious Tywin. But nowadays, without Knights doing like tons of damage, I think this is more shifting towards like Soul Weaver spam, things like that, okay? The hand guy, or sorry, Moonlight Kawaric, plus a lot of Stally comps, maybe like Crimson Armin, and then one or two hard carries. But a lot of y'all, I think, should shift away from this because, of course, like aggro and Cleave, we're just going to need a crazy amount of like high defensive stats, right? I don't think I need to write that down. But yeah, this kind of covers the overall play style. And I think if you guys are curious, just as a side note, I think I fall somewhere in this category. Definitely a turn 2, right? Not full on tank because I don't draft usually more than one Knight or more than one Soul Weaver unless I'm fighting a specific playstyle, but I would consider myself like a turn 2 player, a little bit slower than bruiser, but not full on all tanky units. Okay guys, let's quickly recap the playstyle spectrum. Starting from the far left hand side, we have the tanks and Soul Weaver comp, where we are just trying to stall out our opponent, try to just survive, and then slowly kill them after they run out of gas in the higher frenzy stages. These are long matches. They're designed to just survive and then kill you after your opponent runs out of, you know, gas. Turn 2, same thing, is just like standard but bruiser. You're going slower, not necessarily as slow and as tanky as tank and Soul Weaver, but your same kind of game plan. You're trying to survive the initial burst, initial onslaught of your opponent, and then defeat them after they run out of gas. Standard and bruiser, this is where most y'all should be starting because of its versatility, because most of the gear you're rolling is not specialized yet. You're probably still just in Wyvern. You haven't branched out into penetration sets from Katie's, counter sets and lifesteal sets from Banshee. So you're going to want to just have a varied, rounded account. Pick the stronger units, which we'll probably cover at the next video. But most of y'all will be in this standard style. This is where you'll find most of your success. And then you can branch left or right, probably right for most of y'all watching, towards different comps. Aggro and Cleave, of course. Aggro, we just start this is where we start getting more pen sets, more speed sets, and we're really trying to streamline our turn orders and really just take it to our opponent and destroy them before they have a chance for the turn 2 and tanks to react or the standard players to react. And then Cleave is all in. We have our super strong units like Ran, Pera, Seaside Iceria, or is it Seaside? Summertime? Iceria. And we just destroy the opponent, Ida, Politis, things like that, and destroy the opponent, Vildred, before they can have a chance as well to even do anything at all. Now, remember what I said at the start of this crudely drawn chart? This is kind of just my definition and what a lot of people consider these sort of playstyles, at least currently in the game as of right now. But in the past, I mentioned there was things like the Golden Boys. Control is completely missing from this entire sheet, which could be, it could be on the tanky side, it could be on the more aggressive side. There's a lot of other playstyles or definitions y'all might come up with or maybe think that I missed out on, but I want to keep things super simple like I keep mentioning, and this is sort of the most generic, most commonly seen playstyles currently out as of 2022. So with all that being said, I think for my next video, we're going to start on this standard style and really focus on that, since that's where most y'all will start. But in future content, I want to bring in guests that specialize in aggro, cleave, tankiness, and we'll go ahead and talk about all the variations more in depth, look at the drafts, look at what units to focus on, and things like that. Now, before I leave y'all, let's just go ahead and talk about a few example units, and we'll, in the next video, go into these a lot more in depth, and I'll discuss like the best bang for your buck style for standard play. But just to name a few off the top of my head, guys, units like Apocalypse Ravi on a bruiser build will work just fine for this standard kind of play. You kind of just first pick these and have fun, just like Rimuru as well, although ignore mine, boys. This would be a more tanky style Rimu, which a lot of y'all watching are gonna be like, Car, what the heck is that? It's been working so well, but we'll save that for a future video. Units like you'll draft a single Fallen Cecilia sometimes as a standard player, maybe a single Soul Weaver, Amelia, Ruel, although with Ruel we start leaning towards more defensive left-hand side of the spectrum, remember, boys. Other examples of bruiser style units could be Landy. Just make sure she's a lot tankier than a aggressive Landy, and she's a lot slower. We want her to survive and just be in that middle ground bruiser territory. Same thing for units like Spectre Tenebria. A Spec Tenny could be seen in a cleave or aggressive comp, but one like this, which is just, you know, around 200 speed, very, very middle of the pack, with some survivability tacked in, we could consider this a more bruiser Stenny. So remember, all these kinds of units can be built towards cleave, towards more tanky, but as a bruiser standard player, the nice thing about it is, as long as your gear sort of rolls all-rounder, we don't need to specialize all damage or all tankiness. Usually most of y'all can fit some of these kind of spread out stat lines, which is why I think most of y'all will have success running this sort of playstyle. All right, but let's wrap it up there, guys. This was just the intro, just to break y'all in, and then we're going to venture more into RTA this coming week. I promise, a lot more videos coming out specializing in real-time arena and helping you guys get there. But make sure you stop by the Twitch stream. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.